Okay, so Eric and I will be sharing the presentation. We'll be co-facilitating the workshop. And again, you'll hear us say many times, one of the keys to academic success is ask questions when you're not sure. So please type into the chat and we will do our very best to answer your question. Okay, so I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement, and this may be new to you, but one of the things that you'll see at Durham College and in most post-secondary institutions is people giving acknowledgement to the Indigenous peoples who were here before us. And so Durham College, our physical location, is on the lands of a group of people called the First Peoples of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. And so this Indigenous group lived and protected the land for generations and generations. And so we want to give our thanks to the Indigenous people who cared for the land that we're living and learning and teaching and prospering on today.
Okay, so during this session, these are some of the topics that we're going to be covering. We've just had the welcome. The next step will be talking about professors' expectations in classes and in your programs. After that, we will discuss the various types of academic writing that are required across many programs at the college. We'll have a short video from a student who wants to share some information with you about his experience. We'll discuss academic integrity as it pertains to your success at the college. We'll talk about some specific success strategies that you can use in your daily lives to navigate through your program. We'll discuss ways of getting additional help if you feel that you need it. And these are all the topics that we will cover in today's session. So we're going to begin by discussing the professor's expectations. And what we mean by this is it's really a matter of what your job is and what your professor's job is. And it might be a little bit different than what you're used to if you're new to Canada or you're new to the post-secondary education system here. So there's a number of things that if you understand the expectations, then you can try to meet those expectations and be even more successful. And we think it's a good starting point that you understand them in the beginning. And so then there's no question about how you should work with your professors and what you should expect. Okay. If you compare, as I mentioned, it might be quite different in Canada compared to what you're used to in your home country. So if you think about the professor-student relationship in the college in Canada and that same relationship at home, I think you'll notice quite a bit of difference. And so this is what we're going to talk about. So the first expectation is that you will be responsible for your own learning. So this means that, for example, if you're sick and you can't come to a class, then it's your job to follow up with the professor and find out what you missed. It's not the professor's job to find you and follow you and check if you're okay. Okay, of course, the professors care about your wellness, but they know that it's the student's role to seek help, not the professor to check if you're okay. Okay. Professors also want you to have a strong academic integrity. And I think if you're not sure what this means, it means basically when you're doing your assignments, you're doing tests, and you're doing all of your studies, that you do it in an honest way. And this is an important topic. So a little bit later, Leslie is going to give a lot more detail about academic integrity. Professors want you to be able to work well in groups and individually. So you'll notice that there are a lot of opportunities for group work where, of course, you're doing an assignment or producing a project or a product with your group mates, but you're also learning to work in groups and work with different personality types, different language skills, and really it's preparing you for the work experience. So I think what you'll find is college in Canada is really meant to prepare students with all of the skills that they need so that the day you graduate, as soon as you get a job, you're ready to go. You know the skills you need. And one of them is working with other people. Of course, there will also be opportunities where you'll work individually and the entire responsibility will be your own. You'll be expected to follow the assignment instructions and use the rubric. So I'm not sure if you know about rubrics, but I'm going to explain it in a moment. Professors are very good with their assignments. They're very good at putting the instructions into step by step. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. And if you read carefully, even if you read the instructions and you feel like you got it, you know what to do, I would recommend to read it very, very carefully, especially if English is not your first language. Often students run into problems. I'll give you a quick example. I had a student last year who he had read the instruction, and I think it said to give an example of a medical condition. And he had actually written about 3 different medical conditions. And when we looked at the assignment, I asked him to read that sentence again because he said it took a long time and he wasn't sure that it was only 10 marks, I think, for the grade. Anyway, when he read that sentence again and he saw an example, it means one example. And he realized he had done 3 times the amount of work just by missing the one word. So really read them very, very carefully. The rubric is a guide to the marking system. So when you get an assignment, some of the grade will be about your writing and your grammar. Some of it will be about the content. Some will be about the research that you've done. And in each case, for each assignment, you'll get a rubric which will describe for each section, if you did very well, you get this grade. If you did okay, you get this grade. And if you didn't do well, you get this grade for each section. And that's really what a rubric is. And you'll get one with every assignment. So the rubrics are really important, not only to check how to get the top score or the best score, it's also important to check about like getting the worst score so you can avoid that. They have a lot of hints in them, a lot of clues about what the professors expect in the assignment. Of course, they want you to improve your communication skills. So again, if English is not your first language, you might be wondering, how do you create a professional tone? How do you write a professional email? You will learn these things and you will practice them all the time. But when I'll explain to you that when you send an email to a professor, you want to keep it as though you're sending an email to your boss. Think of it like a work experience. You're practicing professional language. So you never say, hey, prof, how's it going? You always use a very professional tone. Hello, Professor Smith, or good morning. I would like to talk to you about this point. So be very clear. If you do write email communication to your professors, keep them very brief and specific. If you have several points, maybe you write different emails. Okay, develop your critical thinking skills. So critical thinking skills are the skills you use where it's not necessarily your memory. You're not just remembering something and then restating the same thing. What this means is, for example, maybe in the class you learn about system A and system B, and you study system A, how it works, how to do it, and you study system B, how it works and what to do, and then you get the test. And you're wondering if the test is going to be about system A or system B. And you open the test and you look and it's system C. And you've never seen system C before. And you say, what's this? I've never seen this before. But this is where you have to apply your critical thinking and think about the situation in system C and apply what you learned in system A and B to solve system C. So that's an example. This is something that in some countries it's used all the time. Some countries it's more about memorization. Of course, memorization is very good here. It's helpful. You'll use it. But critical thinking skills and problem solving will also be a big part of what you learn here and what the professors expect you to improve. Submitting your work on time. So being careful about time. If the professors say the assignment is due at this time on this day, don't be late. Even 5 minutes late, 1 minute late. When most of the assignments you will submit online through DC Connect, which is a learning management system. If you don't know what that is, you'll learn very soon, so don't worry. But it's mostly online, your information. Even if you're in a face-to-face class and you're going to the classroom, still your assignments and information will be online in DC Connect. So so the deadline will often be 11:59 p.m. on a certain day, usually Sunday. If you submit it at 12 a.m. on Monday, you're late. And sometimes it'll close. It automatically closes and you cannot submit. Then you would have to contact the professor, and it's a big problem. So trying to be very careful about your time, not only submitting work on time, but coming to class on time. If you have a part-time job, going to your job on time, it's very important. It's showing respect for other people's time, not only your own. Asking questions when you do not understand. This is something Leslie already mentioned to you, that this is one of the key themes here. We know everything's new for you, and we know that it's really important for you to understand so you can be successful. But some of your professors don't know what you don't know, what you don't understand. So you have to ask. And sometimes people are shy to ask. So you could ask in the chat, for example, or you could ask the professor privately later, or ask your question in class, because usually you're not the only one who has questions. Other people do as well. So try not to be shy about asking questions. It's so important. It's kind of your responsibility to let people know if you need help, you have to ask questions and let them know.
Eric?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have a question.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you.
Comofrade asked, how can we improve critical thinking?
Yes, so it's a great question. It's something that, and I understand if you've not used it very often in education. So you've used it in your life. I guarantee you're using it. Anytime you're solving a problem or you're thinking about a solution that you've never thought of before and you discover, that's your critical thinking. So it's just something that's brought forward and practiced and improved. So if you're worried about it right now, try not to. It's very, very early. See, Leslie already told you that you've made the right choice in coming here today. You're just learning about this. You're just hearing about this for the first time. But now it's in your mind and you're thinking about it. So that's a great start. And you'll notice it. You'll notice my example where they ask you to solve a new problem based on your experience. And if you're not good at it right now, you will be. And if your memorization skill is good, which often students from other countries, their memorization skill is amazing. They can remember a book. If you have a very good memorization skill, that will help you in problem solving. Okay. It's a great question, but don't worry. It's too soon to worry. Don't worry. Okay. It's just something to think about and work towards. Okay. Thanks. Okay. And then the last point about professors' expectations is to be they want you to be successful in your course. They don't want you to fail. But of course, they want you to be responsible, as I mentioned, the first one. So, form a relationship, a working relationship, a professional relationship with your professors. Say hello to them, ask them questions, show them that you're trying. That's really important. Just like with a boss, you want to meet the expectations, and then you get paid. And in college, your payment is your grades. Okay, so, but if you ask for help, you will get help, and professors will try to help as much as they can.
Wonderful. Okay, so hot on the heels of Eric talking about professors' expectations, I'll tell you about what you can expect in terms of the various types of academic writing. And Komalpreet, this might actually help clarify and give you another piece of information when it comes to critical thinking, is that your professor won't just say to you, think critically about something. They'll give you questions, sort of question prompts that will help guide your thinking and help guide your writing, for instance. Okay, so you won't be on your own, and you'll be also getting feedback, and your skills, as Eric said, will continue to develop. Okay, so what would be helpful for us perhaps is if people could just type in the chat which programs they're entering. I will talk about the various types of academic writing, but if you can just go into the chat and tell us the name of your program, please, that will help Eric and I when we're discussing more specific things, help us to give you information that will pertain to your program. So data analytics, I see. Good. Anybody else? Which program are you going into? Interactive media design. Excellent. Okay. Good. Behavioral science. Oh, we've got a nice variety here. Good. Couple more people. Data analytics as well. Good. Conflict resolution and mediation. Oh, excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody. That's great. Okay, so a real variety in terms of what types of writing you'll probably be doing. However, this information is general enough that I think it will pertain to every program, and then I'll give you some more specifics that will relate to the programs we see represented here. So most of you will be involved in doing short writing assignments. And oftentimes they're things at the beginning of the semester where your professors just want to get an understanding of your writing skills. It could even be something like, introduce yourself online, send a quick professional email, maybe write a paragraph, maybe do a short summary. So short writing assignments, I think you can all expect throughout in your programs, especially early on. Typically, and this is a very general statement, the shorter the assignment, the less marks it's worth. Now, I know it's not just about the marks, but just to give you an idea, maybe a short writing assignment like an email might be worth 5%, where an essay might be worth 20%, for instance. Okay, so as I said, all of you will likely be involved in some short writing assignments. Some of you may be doing essays. The one in behavioral science, you'll have essays. The conflict resolution, you'll have essays. I would imagine less so for the data analytics. And I'm forgetting one of the programs, the interactive media design, probably less essays as well. Although in most of your programs, you're going to be taking general education courses. So you'll have your courses for your program that would be very subject specific. And then in all 2- and 3-year programs, you have what are called general and 4-year programs, you'll have general education courses or electives. And sometimes those electives will have essays. Essays can be structured in a number of different ways. You might be used to writing sort of a 5-paragraph essay. Sometimes they're longer than that. Sometimes they're a little bit shorter. But if your professor refers to write a paper about something, sometimes that term is used interchangeably with the word essay. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a report, which is the next type of academic writing. So in anything that's sort of technical, science related, you might be doing reports, and these might be business reports. So for sure in the data analytics program, you're going to be doing business reports. You might be doing lab reports in science-related programs, technical documentation. So a report, one of the big differences between a report and an essay is a report has a structure with headings and subheadings. It's a way to organize the information to make it more readable. So whereas an essay uses words to sort of connect the ideas together, a report uses headings and subheadings to organize the information. And reports sometimes have things like table of contents and so on, where essays don't. Another type of academic writing is client documentation. I think you'll see this in perhaps the conflict resolution program, as well as in the behavioral science program, where you'll see that, oh, maybe all programs actually, where you're maybe doing a needs analysis or you're doing some sort of behavior report. And it's where you are documenting things that you would present to a client down the road. Eric mentioned already that the college is designed to help prepare you for work. And so in many of the programs, you'll be doing sort of sample reports, sample client documentation that you would then see in the workplace. Another type of academic writing, and we put it into this category because it relates to writing, is presentations. And so presentations have a structure as well, much like an essay or a report. And you have to write the presentation. So maybe it's not exactly on the PowerPoint, all the words, but you're still having to write down the key points and then discuss those using written notes and so on to actually present something. So that's another type of academic writing you can expect to see. Most programs involve some presentations because, again, when you go to work, you're going to be maybe presenting things to clients or to customers or to colleagues, for instance. So presentation skills are a thing that that a lot of students develop throughout their college program. Reflections, and this may be new to you. So in some programs, you're asked to do reflective writing. And what that means is that you are thinking about a situation. Sometimes your professor will provide you with that situation, and you're asked to think about what that situation means, write about it, what it means to you, what you've learned from that situation. Sometimes you're reflecting on a situation or an experience that happened to you, and you're writing about that experience, what you did well, what you could improve upon for the next time. So if you see the term reflection, write a reflection on something, almost always you're going to be using I. I learned this. I experienced this. I enjoyed this. I did this. I will do this differently the next time. So reflections involve using first person I, where most of the time your other writing assignments will not be using I. But if you see the word reflection, you'll be using I. And Eric mentioned this already, that professors will give you practice. You won't be left on your own. If your professor says write a reflection, oftentimes there will be questions to guide you. So we just want to give you an overview of the kinds of writing you might expect to see. Maybe you've never done reflective writing before, but it's a really good practice to help you develop your skills, help you think about what you've learned, and help you think about how you're going to use this information in your studies and in your career. And finally, you will expect to be doing discussion posts on DC Connect. So DC Connect is our learning management system. It's where your professors will post the course content, announcements, and so on, and where oftentimes you'll be interacting with your classmates. And so sometimes in some classes, you'll have a DC discussion post every week. And Eric mentioned deadlines. Sometimes it's due at, by Sunday night at whatever time, you have to have your discussion post up there. And these discussion posts are a way for you to engage with your classmates. Sometimes there'll be maybe a little reading you have to do, and then you discuss it with each other. Now, the discussion may happen in class where you're physically discussing it, but it also can happen online where, let's say, Danelle's our professor and she posts a question, and Eric and I each post a response to that question. And then Eric and I discuss with each other within DC Connect. I discuss Eric's response, maybe he discusses my response, and we're engaging in a discussion. Professors are checking for these discussion posts, so it's part of it. Usually they count for marks. It's a way for your professors to know that you're keeping up with the material and that you're working with your classmates and engaging with the content.
Okay, so thank you, Leslie. So
Thanks.
what we're going to do next is we're going to listen to a short video from Sorab, who was an international student who graduated last year. And he had a few tips that he wanted to provide and have you think about. Okay, so I'm just going to play the video, and Leslie, can you just give me a thumbs up if you can hear him speaking, and if you can't, we'll stop and we'll fix that. But I think
Yep.
I have it set up.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, here we go.
Hello everyone, I'm Saurabh, an international student with the Artificial Intelligence Graduate Certificate Program in Durham College. Let me share a few tips with you which will help you in smoothly transitioning to academic life at Durham College. I would like to talk about a few things where you have chosen this program and you have already taken the most important step of becoming inquisitive and improving or succeeding in your life. At Durham College, everyone is poised to see you succeed and strives really hard so that you reach the zenith of your career through Durham College. However, be mindful of the fact that you are responsible equally for your success. The fact that you have to put enough efforts and time to learn new things, while all the help will be provided to you, still you are responsible to manage your time, you are responsible to embrace changes, you are responsible to submit your assignments, and you are responsible for your learning. That is what DC stands for. You have everything, but you just need to strive hard. You just need to assimilate whatever is given to you, and take my word, Durham College will help you succeed in your life. And Durham College will be one of the cornerstones in your learning as well as your career. With that, welcome to Durham College and all the best.
Okay, that's so Saurabh was actually such a great student, and he really enjoyed his experience. He really wanted to do the video to help us out, to share his experience and provide some encouragement for other international students coming in. So anyway, okay, so we have talked about the types of writing, we talked about the expectations, and Saurabh reiterated many of the same expectations that we've been talking about. But now what we're going to do is switch gears, and Leslie's going, you'll remember the second expectation that was presented about the professor's expectations was to have a strong academic integrity, and that's what Leslie's going to be speaking about now.
All right, thanks, Eric. Yes, please ask any questions, just type them into the chat. You may have questions as I'm going through this material, and we really want you to understand stuff. So as Eric mentioned, we don't know that you don't know something. So let us know if you have questions. Okay, so to start off with, why do we even need to discuss academic integrity? Well, one thing we know is that for students who are new to college, especially students who are new to the Canadian education system, there may be different, and there likely are, different expectations when it comes to academic integrity. So things that maybe you've experienced in your home country, in post-secondary education, or in high school, for instance, we want to make sure that you're aware of what's expected of you here, and understanding that college is, we want you to be successful, and we want you to understand things that you would really have no way of knowing about unless you were to be told about it. And so keeping in mind that in your program, the idea is to prepare you for your career. And so it's not just about the marks. Marks are important, but sometimes people feel that pressure to be, honor roll. I've got to get amazing marks, and I'm going to do it at all costs. And we want to make sure that you understand what your responsibilities are when it comes to completing your studies, and understanding that there are supports available to help you, and that really there are no shortcuts to getting a college education. And so Saurabh mentioned you need to strive hard, and college isn't meant to be easy. And I'm not meaning to scare you here, but it's not meant to be easy. If it was easy, everyone would have a diploma or a degree. So you've made a decision to enroll in your program so that you can achieve success, and we want to see you achieve that success. So we want to talk about academic integrity because it's something that may be new to you, the concepts that we have here at DC. And so that sort of explains why we're talking about it. It's important. All of this is important information, but we really want to highlight this academic integrity piece because it may be different from what you've heard about before or what you've experienced in your home country. So when we talk about academic integrity, we're referring to academic honesty, okay? And so integrity means honesty. And employers expect honesty. I would imagine your family expects honesty. The college expects honesty. And so we have a policy that's the academic integrity policy, and it defines what Durham College sees as academic integrity. So I'll read it exactly, and you'll notice that I've put quotation marks around it. And I've told you where this information came from. Afterwards, it says Durham College 2021. So Durham College is the author of this information, and 2021 is the year that this policy was updated. And so I've put quotation marks around it because I've copied this information exactly. I don't want to make it look like it's my information. I didn't write this definition. This came directly from the institution. So academic integrity refers to the pursuit of scholarly activity in an open, honest, and responsible manner. Okay, everyone is expected to do their studies honestly. All right, and sorry, the next point, please. And keeping in mind that the expectations and the penalties for breaking the rules, if you don't do your studies honestly, can vary from school to school. So maybe you've gone to post-secondary institutions in the past, and each school has its own academic integrity policy, and certainly from country to country, where the expectations here in Canada, in Ontario, at Durham College, may be different than what you've expected. So it's important to understand the expectations and your responsibilities, as I said, because you'd have no way of knowing these rules except everyone is responsible for following them. Okay, so that's why we're highlighting this. And it's not just international students that have to follow these rules. Everybody is responsible for following these rules. And so we're just giving you a heads up as new international students, just highlighting some key points that you need to be aware of as you begin your studies at a Canadian college. Okay, so in the policy, it refers to breaches, and breaches is when you break the rules. So the policy outlines academic integrity refers to the pursuit of scholarly activity in an open, honest, and responsible manner. So if a student were not to be honest and were to break the rules, these are some examples of some breaches. And there are more than what I'm going to talk about here, but the breaches lead to consequences. So the first breach is copying another person's work. Everyone is responsible for doing their own work. And so when you graduate on your diploma or degree or certificate, it doesn't have 3 people's name on it. It has your name. That's it. And so you can't copy someone else's work. You're responsible for your own work. That was one of the first things that Eric said, was be responsible for your own learning. And so copying another person's work is dishonest. It's considered a breach of academic integrity. Using unauthorized materials during an evaluation. So this may be a test, an exam, some sort of demonstration you have to do. Your professors will specify what is allowed and what isn't. They will tell you, yes, you can bring your textbook to the test, or no, you cannot. Yes, you can search online for answers, or no, you cannot. Yes, you can look at your study notes, or no, you cannot. So, and whether this test is in person or online, if you use unauthorized materials during a test, in other words, materials your professors or an evaluation of some sort, if your professors have told you, no, you cannot do that, or have not given you permission to use those materials, then that's a breach, okay? And there are consequences. Another type of breach is collaborating without permission. So there are going to be many situations, and in all of your programs, you're going to experience this, where you're going to be doing group projects or partner projects. Again, remember Eric said that one of the expectations is that you'll be able to work in groups as well as on your own, but there will be situations where you're working together and your professor has asked you to do that. Okay, Danelle, Eric, and Leslie, get together in a group. You're going to produce one presentation, or you're going to do a report, and everyone has to share the work, okay? So the professor has asked us to do that, that's fine. But if your professor has said, okay, Danelle, Eric, and Leslie, I want you all to read this case study, and then I want you to each individually do your own report. That means we're not allowed to work together. That means we're not allowed to collaborate. And if we do, that's considered a breach. Another type of breach is what's known as contract cheating. And there are sites out there, apparently, where students can either buy materials and like buy an essay, buy a report, or exchange materials. So upload an assignment to this site, and then that gives you like a credit to be able to download an assignment. Obviously, this is not correct. Obviously, this is dishonest, and obviously it's breaching academic integrity. You're responsible for doing your work. Again, there aren't shortcuts to getting a post-secondary education. Another type of breach is submitting the same work in more than one course without permission. So if you have done an assignment in first semester that is on a topic that's of real interest to you, and then you have an opportunity to explore that topic in more detail in second semester, for instance, you want to check with your professor whether it's okay to do that. Because that material that you used in first semester is already stored on a database, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So you always, and this goes back to asking questions, you always want to get clarification. Professor, I did this topic before. I'm very interested in it. Can I use some of this information again? Your professor will say yes, or they'll say no. Okay, so it goes back to permission. So when you're not sure about something, don't think, okay, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. Make sure you get permission. And the last type of breach is plagiarism. And plagiarizing is when you don't acknowledge where you get information from. And I'm going to spend a fair amount of time talking about that so that you understand, again, what your responsibilities are so that you don't get yourself into any sort of trouble. Okay, I see a question, but I didn't see what it was.
Leslie, can you just go back to the previous slide for a moment? Someone missed some information they wanted.
Okay, perfect. Did you have any questions about the information, or you're just trying to take notes?
I was just trying to take notes.
Okay.
I don't have a question.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and you don't have to get word for word. I mean, some people like to capture every single word, but if you have a system for jotting down point form things, that's good. Just to the basic idea with this slide was to talk about it's your responsibility to understand the rules, do your studies honestly, and that the rules here may be different than what you've experienced before.
Okay, I got it.
right.
I was just pointing down and I just missed one point.
Okay,
I
no
counted
worries.
on this. Yeah.
I'm glad you're taking
Okay.
notes, Kamalpreet. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me just briefly talk about what happens. So again, not to scare you, we want to give you information. So if there is an academic integrity breach, the policy outlines the steps that happen if it's determined that something dishonest has occurred. So you'll see at the top there sort of the steps that occur. If there's an alleged breach, so like a suspicion that something has been dishonest, then your professor will want to discuss it with you. Okay, they will, and don't ignore that. That's a chance for you to talk to them about it, explain the situation, ask questions, and so on. If it's determined that the professor wants to complete, has determined that they believe there has been a breach, they will fill in an academic integrity alert form. You will have an opportunity to comment on the form and to explain the situation. The form then goes to the dean, who is sort of in charge of the program, kind of in charge of that whole department. The dean then looks into it to determine if there was a breach or not. So they would speak with the professor, they might speak with you, they would look at the documentation. If it's determined that there has been a breach, then there's a penalty assigned, okay? But the first step, if there has been a breach, is to discuss it with your professor, okay? Don't ignore the email. Don't think it's going to go away on its own, because the procedure will still happen. You want to have that opportunity to discuss it and get more information. Okay, so some possible penalties are for people to complete a longer version of what I'm talking about right now. It's called the SALS Academic Integrity Workshop. It goes into a lot more detail than what I'm doing today. Sometimes students will get a 0 on the assignment, and you can see further down that in some very serious situations, even on a first breach, you could actually be removed from your program. On a second or third breach, the consequences can get more serious. So in other words, on the first breach, there are a lot of options available for penalties. If it happens again, there are fewer options. You don't want to get to this situation at all, right? You don't want to have a breach, certainly not a second or third breach, and not even a first breach. So this is where it's important to make sure you ask questions when you're not sure about something, and then I'll give you some other strategies for helping you avoid challenges like this.
Leslie, we have a question.
Mhm.
How to best prove academic integrity if you are flagged but didn't do anything dishonest? So, and then there was a follow-up clarification. What should one have prepared going into a sit down with the professor?
So let me give you some strategies for avoiding the situation in the first place, and then I think that might answer your question. It boils down to you being careful, allowing enough time, and not trying to take shortcuts. So if I don't answer the question when I'm going through the rest of this material, please, Danelle, just point it out to me and I'll come back and answer it. But I feel like these strategies might help you prepare in the event that there is a situation, and nobody wants this to happen, right? Nobody wants to have a sit down with a student who they think has breached academic integrity. I want to give you the information now, and that's why Eric and I are doing this workshop, give you information before you start your studies, right? That's going to help you and give you the knowledge that you need so that you can enter feeling confident that you have a better understanding of what you can expect. Okay, so academic integrity breaches are dishonest. I've talked about that already, can have a negative impact on the college's reputation. So Durham College doesn't want to ignore academic integrity breaches. They want to make sure that they maintain a high academic standard. So if there are breaches, if it's determined that there has been a breach, they're going to take it seriously, okay? Academic integrity breaches can affect your credibility or your reputation. I'm sure you don't want people doubting you. Can we trust Danelle? You know, she breached academic integrity once already. She cheated on a test or she plagiarized. We don't want that. We want to make sure that we maintain a high reputation. Danelle wants to graduate in good standing and wants to make sure that she's getting as prepared as possible for her future career and life in general. Academic integrity breaches, you know, copying from someone else, going onto those cheating sites and so on, it's obviously going to lead to a gap in understanding the course material. If you've tried to take a shortcut and if I've copied from Eric, taken information from him, I haven't done the work myself, I'm going to have gaps in my understanding of the material, which is going to cause problems for later, because then I'm not going to understand the next concept or the next class, for instance. This can have implications for your future career, and it can cost time and money, because let's say you do have to repeat a class. Let's say you are removed for a semester, etc. This is going to cost you time and money. And I don't know what the current rate is. Tuition fees are for international students, but I know they're very significant. And you do not want to be spending, I don't imagine, any more money. And certainly not any more time, because you're working hard to achieve your credential. But these breaches can cost you time and money in the event that there has been a breach. Okay, so plagiarism is unfortunately one of the most common academic integrity breaches, and there are a number of different ways. I won't have time to talk about it, but there are a number of different forms of plagiarism. Basically, plagiarism is considered the unacknowledged use of another author's words or ideas. So I have to say, if I'm using other people's words or ideas, I have to say that I'm using other people's words or ideas. And I'll show you in a minute what I mean by that. So if you don't acknowledge that you're using other people's words or ideas, that's plagiarism, okay? Plagiarism also, as I said, it can come in different forms, but all forms of plagiarism are considered breaches, okay? Sometimes plagiarism is accidental. the unintentional one. So maybe you don't know all the rules for referencing and you make a mistake. Sometimes it's very intentional. Sometimes you copy and paste directly from a source and make it look as though it's your own. In both cases, whether intentional or unintentional, it's still plagiarism, and it can still be an academic integrity breach, and there can still be penalties. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm sad that there were only 6 incoming students who are here at this workshop, because you're getting very valuable information all around. All of this information is going to help you transition to college. I see a hand up. Yes, Komalpreet.
Yes, so I wanted to ask about the acknowledgement. There would be different assignments, right?
Yeah.
Like I am in data analytics program, so we will be using data from different sources. So
Yep.
do we have to acknowledge all the resources sources we are using? And in data, it wouldn't be too much, like professor. We can seek help from professors in using the references and all.
It's a really good question, and I think I'll answer that. And I can already tell, Komalpreet, you're going to be a very good student. I can tell by your questions that you're thinking ahead and you're trying to anticipate, how can I do this properly? And that makes me very happy for you
Thank
and
you
for
so
the
much.
college.
Thank you.
So yeah, so it's important. I will tell you when you have to reference. And then again, like what I'm telling you is kind of general information. But if there are specific questions you have, because data analytics, of course, you have to get the data from somewhere. So your professors will specify, yes, you have to reference this, or we're giving you a data set. We know we've given it to you. You don't have to reference it. So your professors will specify, okay? And if it's not 100% clear, I know you're going to ask a question. Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks.
Excellent. And anyone else, please ask questions. We want you to understand this information. Okay, so some risk factors to plagiarism, and I'm cognizant of time. One of the biggest risk factors is procrastination. And procrastination is when students don't allow enough time to get their work done. They push it off. Maybe it's because you're busy. You're juggling your classes, you're juggling work, sleep, other commitments, family, and so on. And so procrastination can happen where work gets put off to the last minute and then you're rushing, right? And then you're panicking. And when people panic, sometimes they do things that they wouldn't normally do, like cheat on a test or plagiarize and so on. Another risk factor is struggling in class. So you may be having difficulty with a particular class and you get a little bit panicked again, and you say to a classmate, I need to see what you've done. I'm failing this class. I'm really struggling. And so that's a risk factor, because then the temptation might be to copy. Okay, so having difficulty in a class might be actually a risk factor for breaking academic integrity. Another risk factor is rushing your work. So when I talk about referencing, you'll see the importance of being careful with your referencing. If you rush your work, it can lead to mistakes, even unintentional mistakes, which can be considered plagiarism. Another risk factor is not tracking your research. We'll share a tool with you. In fact, after this workshop is finished, we're going to be sending emails to you, to your DC mail, that give you a whole toolkit of resources that will help you. And one of them will be a form that I'm going to discuss in a minute. Another risk factor is not knowing the rules for referencing. So I'll touch on it, and it'll be about 2 minutes versus how we need a lot longer to explain it, but I'll just give you a little bit of a taste of what is involved with referencing. So before I do that, I'll just tell you how plagiarism is often detected. It's usually a combination of 2 things: your voice, your professor's experience, and through software. So everyone has a style or a voice, a writing voice, a way of communicating your ideas. And so if I were to hold up this pen, for instance, I would be shocked if anyone in this workshop would use the exact same ways to describe this pen. Okay, Eric might say it's blue. Danelle might say it's bright blue. I might say that it's cheap. Someone else might say that it is ink or gel or whatever. So that's my voice. That's our voice. Everyone has a style of writing. You use certain vocabulary, you have certain structures to your writing, you make certain grammar mistakes, for instance. Your professor might notice that your voice in an assignment doesn't sound like your voice. It doesn't sound like your writing because maybe it's too perfect. Maybe it sounds like it's coming from a textbook or a website or a company document. So that's one way. Your professor with experience starts to learn how students write. And Eric and I see it quite regularly where we can see students' voices. When it's your voice, it's obvious. When it's not your voice, it's quite obvious. Okay, so that's one way. Another way is through plagiarism detection software, and Durham College has a license to turnitin.com, which is a massive, you might have heard of it before, database that uses pattern matching to compare your work to the work on its database. And this database has probably, well, it has billions of pages of content, including previously submitted student papers. So if you had a cousin who came to a school somewhere that uses turnitin.com and they submitted an assignment and you tried to use that same assignment for another class, it's going to be sitting on the database and it's going to come back as plagiarized. Okay. Or if you copy and paste information from the internet and you don't tell us where you got the information from, it's going to come back as plagiarized. So it's that combination of professor's experience and turnitin.com that often leads to plagiarism detection concerns. Okay, so we have a quick poll for you and we'd really like you to interact. I'm going to just read out, or maybe you can read the 4 scenarios that we want to know, do you think this is plagiarism or not? So the first one is you provide all the correct links to the sources you used, and these would be, let's say, websites, at the end of your document. So keep that one in mind, and the poll is going to ask all 4. Do you think that's plagiarism? The next one is you have to submit a 5-page report. You copy a section from a classmate who has better marks than you do. But since you've written most of it on your own, you think your professor will accept this. Okay, so think about whether or not you think that's plagiarism. You attend a workshop and are asked to write about what you learned. You and your friend talk it over and discover you had the same ideas, some of the same ideas about the workshop. After meeting with your friend, you go your own ways and you each write your own reflection. And the fourth one, you have 2 assignments due tomorrow. One is a discussion post worth 2% and the other is a report worth 10%. You find a blog post that you really like. You go online, you find a blog post, you copy it, you change a few words, and then you use that as your DC discussion post and submit it before the deadline. So these 4 scenarios. The poll is about to come up and we want to see what you think. So which statement is an example of plagiarism? And you can choose more than one. And in fact, you can choose the last one, which is all 4 statements are examples of plagiarism. Okay, so please answer the question and then we'll check the results. We need your participation, please. 1 person has responded. Good, keep going. 2 people, good. 3, excellent. Keep it going. 4. Don't worry, this isn't for marks. We just want to see what you think. Okay, 2 more people. One more. All right, should we end it, Eric? Okay, let's see the results. All right, so 4 out of 5 said that you have to submit a 5-page report and you copy one section and change some of the words. Definitely, that's an example of plagiarism. Okay, you can't, I just want to move the poll out of the way because now I can't see this actual whole statement. Just a minute. Wait a second. I need to move it. Okay. Yeah, you can't copy from a classmate. Okay, the information has to come from you. The professor wants to see your understanding of the material. You think your professor will accept it, that you've copied from someone else? No. The first one actually is also an example of plagiarism, and I'll talk in a second about why. But basically, it's not enough to just have links to the resources that you used. There's another way you have to reference the material. And all of you recognize that number 4 is plagiarism, right? You can't take a blog post and then post it as your own for a discussion post. And it doesn't really matter when the assignment is due or how many marks it is worth. Plagiarism is plagiarism. Number 3, you're correct, is not plagiarism, because although you discussed it, you each individually went off and did your own reflection, right? You didn't share information, you didn't collaborate without permission, you just discussed it and then each individually wrote. Very good. Okay, so I mentioned this document. This is a way to keep track of your research. And the idea with this is for each source that you have, you use one of these research notes forms. So in the top box, and you will get this document sent to you afterwards, in the top box, you're going to record your source information. So Kamalpreet, or I can't remember who asked the question, but I don't think it was you, about what you would take to a meeting with your professor. One way to avoid even getting to that meeting is to keep very careful notes, okay? Make sure you're allowing enough time to take research notes. So your source information for that particular source, website, book, YouTube video, whatever it is, goes in the top box. Then you have the page, notes, and the plan. And this is a way to keep your information organized, to know exactly where the information came from so that you can reference it correctly. Okay. So you do not need to reference what's called common knowledge. And there are 3 examples here just so that you can see what is meant by common knowledge. So Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories, common knowledge. You don't have to reference that. Canada is the 2nd largest country in the world, and this is by area. That's just common knowledge, okay? People generally know that. Canada's area is 9,904,000. I won't read the whole number. That's not common knowledge. You had to go online to find that out because you didn't measure it yourself. So the statistic there has to be referenced. The general information that we would say, yeah, pretty well everyone knows that, does not need to be referenced. However, if you're not sure, you should reference it. The other thing that doesn't need to be referenced is your opinion, which is, Canadian summers are lovely, that's your opinion, but how you support that opinion needs to be referenced, but your opinion itself does not need to be referenced. Okay, geez, I'm really taking up a lot of time here. It's important information though. Okay, referencing. So this is another resource or another strategy that you use to avoid getting yourself into trouble. So whether you're doing a report, a presentation, a paper, you have to reference in 2 places, what are called in-text citations and a references page. Every time you quote information, copy word for word, every time you paraphrase information, which is when you've put something into your own words. And this, I want to highlight this one because this is often new information to people. Most people know that when they copy something word for word and they use quotation marks around that information, they have to tell us exactly where that information came from by referencing it. However, when you paraphrase, now you're putting someone else's information into your own words. You still must reference because it's not your idea. The idea came from someone else. Now, when you paraphrase and when you summarize, you do not use quotation marks, but you still have to acknowledge or tell us where you got the information from. Because you're using your own words, but you're explaining someone else's ideas. Statistics must be referenced and images must be referenced. Okay, so really briefly now, APA. So those of you in data analytics, behavioral science, and shoot, what was the other one?
There was
Here's-
conflict
Oh, conflict.
resolution,
Yeah. Okay.
data analytics, behavioral science, and interactive media design.
Okay, so everyone except for interactive media design, you'll likely be using APA. Your professors will tell you for sure, but APA is used in sciences, including computer sciences. It's used in business, and it's a way of documenting where you got the information from and when the information was written. So you can see the example there. Here's a statistic again about Canada. Might as well give you some information about the country you're going to be studying in, about our population. And I didn't make this stuff up. And I have to tell you where I got it from. I'm telling you I got it from Statistics Canada. And so that goes right beside that information in my paper. As well, I have to do a references entry at the end, and the references entry gives the link and some other information as to where I got that statistic from. In the package that we're going to email you to you, you're going to receive the APA guide, and you're also going to receive the MLA guide. So MLA is used in the, oh, where'd the presentation go? MLA is going to be used in the interactive media design program, and in other arts related programs. So we will email you the guides. And if you want help with understanding how to use them, there are workshops that we offer on referencing. Okay, some other ways to avoid plagiarism very quickly. Manage your time. Start working on your assignments early. Don't wait till the last minute. Very dangerous. Use the rubric. Eric already mentioned this before. Make sure you use the rubric to understand the assignment guidelines and any research requirements. Ask your professor if you're not sure. You've heard us say that many times. Ask, ask, ask. Make sure you understand your topic and use clear language. Don't try to get fancy with your writing. Make sure you're using language that you're comfortable using and that you understand. And then develop your skills in summarizing and paraphrasing and referencing and using quotations. Do your own work. Don't copy. Again, no shortcuts. And finally, don't share your files. Don't let other students get your work, because if you share your work, both of you can get into trouble. And this is another important consideration. If you are working on a group project, you need to look at it before you submit it if your name is on it. What ends up happening sometimes in group projects is that some students are less careful than others, and students don't check the work, and then one student has plagiarized. Now you're all potentially in trouble. So make sure you're checking each other's work. Okay, thank you. I hope that was helpful. A lot of information. Eric's going to talk to you about some other academic resources.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. The reason the presentation popped off was because I wanted to go and try and set up the screen before I got to it, but anyway, here we are, just a second. As it turned out, I just clicked on the link and we're there anyway. Okay, so one thing we wanted to share with you is that there are a number of resources on inside MyDC. So you can see the address at the top there, durhamcollege.ca MyDC. And right now we're inside the learning resources of MyDC. And inside those learning resources, there's lots of helpful stuff for you. More information about academic integrity. There's an academic success toolkit in here. So once you go inside there, you'll get more information. There's tip sheets, really helpful information. Also the library research guides, and more information about SALS itself, the Student Academic Learning Services, where we work, and also additional external from outside Durham College. So a lot of helpful resources here. We strongly encourage you to investigate these before your program starts so you get some information that will help you. Okay, now I'm going to pop off of this one and go back to our presentation. Okay, and I think also Leslie wanted you to know that if you want to see any of the policies, there's a lot of policies at the college that of information that you need to know about and you're expected to know about. And so if you're curious about that, the policy about academic integrity can be found here, as well as a list of all kinds of policies if you want to investigate that. Okay, so now we ask the question, are you prepared? Do you feel prepared? And if you're not prepared, or you're wondering if you're prepared, these are some of the things that you can do in the next few days. And also, once the school year starts, you'll still have a little bit of time to adjust. But visiting my DC, which is what I just showed you inside the learning resources, getting familiar with DC Connect. We've talked about that a little bit. If you don't know what that is, that's the learning management system. So each of your courses will have its own space on DC Connect, and that's where you can see the content. You'll do your discussion posts, communicate with your classmates. Even if you have a physical classroom where you go to the room and you're with everybody, you'll still have a DC Connect representation of your course. And number 3, review your course outlines and course materials. So each course will have an outline, and the outline will give you information about when are the tests, when are the assignments, what to expect in week 1, week 2, week 3, and so on, all the way through to the end in week 14. Purchase your textbooks. So sometimes they're physical books, sometimes they're digital books, but you can start to prepare by getting your books. They are, if your professor says the textbook is required, then the expectation is you purchase the book. Okay, that's part of your responsibility. And getting organized, setting up folders for each of your courses, looking at your calendar, planning, use your course outlines. If you find out you'll have a test on this date, you can put it in the calendar. Start to prepare and organize yourself as well. Okay, so we want to go over some specific tips that international students can use to be more successful and support their success. So the first one is to manage your time. Leslie mentioned procrastination is one of the reasons that students will end up sometimes plagiarizing or breaking academic integrity, breaching academic integrity. It's because they put it off until the last minute and then they panic. This can also just be when you have many assignments or you have lots of reading you have to do, and it just builds up. And so try to plan out your time. We have workshops about this. You can meet with staff members about this in SALS to help you organize. So if you're running into some struggles, then reach out to SALS and we can help. Attending classes on time. I mentioned to you about people's time in Canada. Culturally, time is very important. You want to show respect for other people's time as well as your own. And you can expect that people will show respect for your time as well. So whether you're online, you have online classes or in-person classes, be on time. Check DC Connect every day. So this is really important because sometimes your professor will do all of the announcements, all of the important upcoming announcements might be in DC Connect. Even if you go to class, they might not mention something, but the announcement will be in DC Connect. So you want to check every day. Check your DC mail. So DC mail is the only way the college will communicate with you. They won't send email to your Gmail or any other kind of account. It's only through DC mail because it's secure. So when you get an email from your professor, it's best to use DC mail and check it every day. So when you're sending emails to your professor, if your professor communicates with you or the college communicates, they're going to send it to DC mail only. So make sure you're checking it. Follow assignment instructions carefully and use the rubric. This is the point that I made earlier. Really important that you read the instructions carefully, even if you feel like you got it and you're sure, you feel confident. That's the time to just go back one more time and be sure. Ask questions when you don't understand. This is the theme of this entire workshop. Improve your skills and learn from your experiences. So, as you're adjusting, you might not do well on an assignment or not do well on a test when you feel like back home you would have done fine on the same assignment or test. But remember, there's so many things you're learning. You're learning about the expectations, cultural expectations, language expectations. So every experience you have, if it's good, or in particular, if it's not good, learn from that and make sure that you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over. If you make a mistake, you learn from it and you don't do that again. Perfect. That's how you improve and that's how you graduate. And recognize when you need help and don't be shy. to ask for help. There's lots of sources of help we're going to talk about in a few moments. Okay, but once you recognize you need help, usually the earlier the better. When you recognize it, then reach out and get it. Okay, and as I say, we'll talk about help in a moment. So I just want to do one more quick poll with you, and I'm just going to launch it right now. So this one is asking you to choose the 3 most important success tips. So of the 8 tips that I just gave you on the screen, choose your top 3. You can just, so it doesn't matter which order, just choose the ones that you think are the 3 most important for you that will help you the most. We'll just see what people think. Okay, so we have 1, we have 2 replies. 3 replies, great. Anyone else? One more? Okay.
Eric,
Yes.
I know you're talking about the poll right now, but I just wanted to alert you that we do have another question in the chat asking what exactly is a rubric?
Okay, I will mention rubrics again. Thank you. Okay, great. Okay, we'll end the poll here, and we can see, I'll share the results right now. You can see that commonly everybody agreed that managing your time is going to be one of the most helpful things and I think you're exactly right. Attending classes was important, checking DC Connect every day and checking DC mail as well. Carefully following instructions and rubric. And the rubric, one more time, is so the professors, when you get an assignment, they will give you the instructions step by step for each step of your assignment so that you can complete it. And they're very good to try and be as clear as possible. You can also ask them for clarification if it's not clear, but they will also give you something called a rubric, which is like a chart. And for this assignment, they'll tell you if, you know, for example, for grammar and punctuation and writing style, that might be 10% of the assignment. And if you want, you know, full marks for your grammar, you have to do this. If you don't do this, then you'll get some marks. And if you don't do that, you'll get no marks. So it'll show you very clearly for each section of your assignment. Could be the content, could be the introduction, could be your research. All of those sections will have a grade attached. And of course, you want to do the best you can, but I also mentioned to look at the poor grade for the rubric so that you can avoid those problems, because those are the things professors don't want you to do. So it's just a marking system. It'll show you the marking system for each assignment. Okay, and ask questions. Thank you. Somebody said ask questions when you don't understand. That's great. Okay, and I mentioned getting help. So when you run into problems, academic problems, or any other real problem, these are the sources that you can reach out to help, because if those people don't know the solution to the problem, usually they know where you need to go to get the solution. Okay, so, but if you have any, especially if it's academic trouble, you're struggling or you need extra support in something, then your professors are the first source of help. They're the people who are giving you the grades. They're the people who design the assignments and the tests. So they are the best source of information to clarify. In addition, you can talk to your program student advisors or international student advisors to get additional information if you need to alter your schedule in some way, or add a course or drop a course. Don't do any of that yourself before talking to a student advisor, because if you drop a course and it turns out that you need that course to enter the next semester, can you imagine? That would be a disaster. So always ask your student advisor if you need to change anything about your course schedules. Okay. Also, the library is a great source of research and referencing support. Study groups. So you can you know, form a group with your classmates, find your friends, and even a small group, because it's an opportunity for you to try to explain something. If you can explain it in your own words, then you really understand it deeply, and it'll deepen your understanding. And sometimes hearing it from a classmate explained maybe a different way than the professor explained it might just be helpful enough to make it clear for you. And remember the MyDC resources. So there's lots of information in there that might just answer your questions without needing to ask anybody. And then of course, SALs, either visiting us, and we'll give the contact information in a few moments, but either visiting us or looking at the resources online, as was mentioned as well. Danelle's going to also share with you a link in the chat, and this is for our survey. And our survey is really important because we want to find out if this is the kind of information that you were hoping for, if this helped you, if you have any comments or feedback for us that we can learn from and use to then improve the workshop. So it's really, really helpful for us if you would take a few minutes. It shouldn't be, I would guess, maybe 3 or 4 minutes of your time to offer that feedback. It's all digital, online, and you can submit it. That would be great. Okay, so we're just going to spend a little bit of time to give you a little more detail about SALs, all of SALs. So we've been talking about academic integrity and strategies and tips for you to be successful. Now we want to just give you a little background on what SALs is, how you can get support. So Leslie's going to give you a little more explanation.
Perfect. Okay, so I think what I'll do to be efficient is start on the left side and move over to the right side. I'll first of all point out that we have 3 colors, and you'll see at the top left it says with a specialist, and that's kind of the purple color. With a peer is green, and at my own pace, which is orange. And so the academic support we have, which I believe Eric mentioned already, is already, maybe not, is already included in your tuition. You're not paying extra for this stuff. So SALs can provide subject support to you, and that can be both with a specialist, with a staff member, as well as with a peer, so through peer tutoring. We also have support for general computer skills. So it could be Microsoft Office or understanding how to navigate DC Connect. We have something called SALs Online. In SALs Online, we have actually 10 units, we call them. They're not courses, but they're materials that are there to support you in your studies. And you can register for as many of those SALs Online units as you need for your program. Excuse me. Moving over to the right-hand side, we've talked a lot about academic writing, the different types of academic writing, what your professors expect, and so on. So you can get workshop help, you can get help in appointments, and through peers to help you develop your academic writing skills. We also have learning strategies support, and you'll see that one of our learning strategies comes under time management and organization, as well as overcoming procrastination. So most of you, if not all of you, identified that managing your time is going to be very important for you. And if you're not sure how to do that, you might want to check out some of those workshops that we offer on time management, as well as overcoming procrastination, study strategies, any of those learning strategies, those skills that really, they're kind of like success skills. Things that no matter which program you're in, that they would be helpful for you. Eric mentioned that he's an ESL specialist, so we have English as a second language support, and so that would be for writing, but as well as acculturation, understanding how to adjust to the new academic environment, how to adjust to Canadian expectations in terms of studies and so on, as well as pronunciation and vocabulary skills development. And then our peer tutoring, that will be starting in week 3. And peer tutors are students who have done well in their courses and are able to provide tutoring to students who are taking the classes themselves. So our support can either be in person. Many of our services are offered in person, online, like self-paced through SALs Online, as well as we have appointments with staff. If you look over on the options for support, you have appointments with staff. We have what are called tutorials, which are weekly review sessions led by one of our staff, one of our learning specialists to help you with difficult subject matter. And then we have workshops. We have, as I said, self-paced, as well as appointment and peer support. So lots and lots of help available, and you're not going to remember all this necessarily, but just know that SALS is here to support you in your academic studies. To register for SALS Online, you're going to go on to DC Connect and you're going to see this widget. Now, you may find that some of your professors will ask you to register for SALS Online. Some students do it, they choose to register, or it's a combination of both. But basically on the homepage of DC Connect, which is our learning management system, you're going to look for that widget and you're going to click on that. And once you do, it's going to bring you to a list of SALS Online units, we call them. And they're not courses, they're collections of resources, workshops, different things that might be of interest to you. So for instance, you'll see the first one, SALS Online Academic Integrity. If your professor, and many will, require you to complete the Academic Integrity workshop, then you'll need to register for SALS Online Academic Integrity. If you're looking for academic writing materials, grammar, punctuation, ESL materials, academic reading materials, then you would register for academic writing. There's a unit in there on navigating DC Connect. We've got sciences, math, accounting, as well as learning strategies. So those workshops we were talking about, time management, overcoming procrastination, study strategies. So we would encourage you to start with registering for academic writing, since a lot of this workshop pertain to that. No, not solely, but because within that, you're going to find all sorts of materials to support you, as well as then go back and register for as many other units as you like. Keep in mind, this is not homework. This is not marked. These materials are there to support you through your studies. So you can sign up for as many as you like. We also encourage you to follow us on social media. We post very frequently to Twitter and to Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel with all sorts of helpful videos. Our social media posts are timely in that there'll be certain things that come up at the beginning of the semester, throughout the semester, midterm exams, and so on. So follow us on social media, please, and you'll get all sorts of helpful reminders and tips and so on as you progress through your semesters. And this is how you can contact us. So you can email us, is probably your best bet, sals@durhamcollege.ca, or calling, or checking out some resources that we have and contact information on our website, or coming into our centers. So if your program is at the Oshawa campus, we're in the Student Services building. It's the same building where the International Student Office is and where financial aid is. It's a building that kind of looks a bit like an airport hangar when you're up on the second floor. We're at the end of that hallway, SSB 204. And if you're at the Whitby campus, and I don't think any of you are, we're in room 1-10. Wow. Okay, that was quick. There's a question. I see a hand again.
Yes, so as you discussed before about the reference in plagiarism, I had a question regarding that.
Okay.
So like we are using some website for reference, right?
Yeah.
And like we will be copying, not like exactly copying, we will be taking reference from that website. So if we are using the same material as mentioned in the website, would that be plagiarized even though we put it as a reference there?
No. So if you take information, whether it's statistics or a definition or, you know, a couple of sentences about a policy or something, if you clearly indicate that you've copied this information, and usually that's by quotation marks, or remember, even if you've paraphrased or summarized it, you've reworded it, but it's still someone else's idea. As long as you reference, as long as you tell us right beside that information, this is where this information came from. And as long as you put a references entry at the end, indicating exactly where it came from, then you're okay.
Okay.
Okay. But if you're ever unsure, because with data, I'm not 100% sure how your professors want you to reference it. So that's when I would go back and ask them, because they're
Okay.
either going to provide you with data or they're going to ask you to locate data. Because the data did not originate from you, my feeling is you have to reference it, but your professors will be able to be more specific about what they're looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And again, the fact that you're asking the question tells me you're going to be okay. Okay, so the rest of you, please ask questions if you're not sure. And with that, do you have any other questions? Any final questions before we sign off?
Yeah, just one more. Like, I saw the SAL's online accounting course, even though it's not in my program syllabus, and I am not from accounting background. So can I join? Like, will it teach me basics or would it be?
So remember, SAL's online, they're not courses, they're resources. But certainly if you're
Okay.
interested in accounting and you're interested in self-study, then you can find all sorts of material in there. We find
Okay.
some students who are not taking anything to do with math, but they want to brush up on their skills. They register for SAL's online math just to do some practice and to look at some videos and just refresh their memory. So yeah, you're welcome to register for as many SAL's online units as you want. There's no restriction.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions for us? You've all got the survey. We really hope and we value your feedback. So please fill in the survey and submit it. We would very much like to hear from you. We are offering this same workshop again in week 2 and 3 of the semester. It'll be the same material, just for students once they've already started in their program. You were ahead of the game, which was very smart. But we'll be offering it again in week 2 and 3 if you're interested in attending it. Or spread the word. Tell your friends and classmates and so on. Any other final comments, Eric?
No, just to say that I really appreciate that people have been interactive and trying their best to ask questions and participate in the polls and makes us feel like I don't know, makes us feel good about this workshop. But as Leslie said, if you have feedback, please let us know. We'd love to hear. And if you run into any academic problems, remember SAL's and don't hesitate to come and visit us. Check the website, ask by email or phone call, and that's why we're there to help you. And it won't cost any extra money. And good luck in the semester.
And good luck. And thank you, Danelle, for all your help with moderating.
Yeah, thank you, Danelle.
And please watch for an email with a toolkit of resources. So there'll be several of the resources we talked about today, plus a couple of other ones that we hope you'll find helpful. Okay, so check your DC mail for that toolkit of resources that will come out to you later today or possibly tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful semester.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, so if you're not sure how to leave this session, if you're on a laptop, there will be a red leave button in the bottom right corner of your screen. If you are on a mobile device, you can tap your screen once and you will see the universal red hang up sign. And if that doesn't work, I will remove you from the session. Before I even hit remove, I was about to hit remove, gone. Okay, awesome. I'm really sorry I was distracted because apparently Eric was the only person who could download an Eventbrite report.
Oh.
Yeah, and there was just a whole bunch of like